and I'm gonna go get some willow and try to make a couple snowshoes, and then also go ahead and try to dig around in some brush piles and try to make some walking sticks and see how long it would take. Some of it's gonna be a little rudimentary. So I know there's some good willows, some nice, it can't be it has to have consistency all the way through it. It's easier to make snowshoe earrings than the ornaments I'm about to make, but I'll show you how to make that too. And I started making them, I don't know how many years ago, back when my Auntie Ethel was still around, and she had one hanging, I forget, Charles Francis, I forget, makes them, and it was hanging on the ceiling, tacked to the ceiling, and I pulled it down, and I was like, that's cool, so I made a frame, and then I followed the string, and I taught myself the pattern. So I'm gonna go where there's a good little bunch of sticks. So I'm gonna grab a bunch, but I'm only gonna try to make one pair as quick as possible. Okay, this is the first spot with some good willow. Right now it's cold enough just to rip them right out of the ground. I like these ones because they're red. The red ones worked out a lot better. And I have one more place I'm gonna look. Okay, I'm at a second spot where there's some nice willows. It's not as cold as I thought it was gonna be. It doesn't snap off cleanly like I like. All I'm trying to do is make two pairs. I wanted to grab a bunch because I break about 20% of the sticks, especially in the winter time. I break about 20% of them because of how dry they are. Sometimes I have to soak them in water a little bit. New washteria, it's pretty nice in there, a lot more room. Just nice and heated floor. It's very nice. They worked hard on this for, what's it been, like almost 2 years. Getting everything going, it's really nice. No more frozen pipes, we had to deal with that last winter. Constantly freezing and running low. Okay, I got the willow thawing out. Just turned over a cassette tape. I got about 17 minutes till I gotta change that. I'm gonna go dig in a brush pile to try to pull a good walking stick or decorative stick out of some of these old brush piles. I'm not gonna take very long. There's one right down the road, I believe. Okay, we're at the fire cut. It goes around Vinitai Highway fire line. I gotta look for lumps in the snow. That right there is a nice stand of willow. Now that I'm gonna make some snowshoes, I'm just looking at all the willow around town again. But if you ever keep making it, those are some nice ones right there. Tall, consistent. Okay, I'm back at the willows. I dug around in a little slash pile. Couldn't find anything, but this is an example of what I was looking for. See those patterns that the beetles chew up? It's more of a summer gig. Hard to find a good spot in the winter with all the snow. But I was used to turn those into walking sticks, and I'll try to find the one I sold a while back and insert it right here in the video. But right now I'm going to work on some willow. Right about there is where it's nice. Okay, so I'm going to try out two ways. I'm going to leave the bark on a pair, and I'm going to take the bark off a pair because it's pretty dry out, so I don't want to just constantly be busting it. First, I'll just make a hoop, however big I'm looking at it. That's about a good size. And not really very prepared. So I'm just going to use duct tape. My friend the duct tape. Okay, I believe I found the right color pair from the got two different types of willow here. So this is going to be the one I'm going to keep the bark on. So I have to bend it around. You gotta watch out for those bends. If you have to relieve some pressure, you don't want to crimp it. And we'll have a pair here with the bark on it. This will take a lot longer to dry, so I'm just going to set this aside. And we're going to work on a peeled pear. Okay, I've peeled it to a point where I feel like I have good width consistency. You want to get off all this fibers left over from the bark before it dries, because then it's just a pain. You're going to cause dust. See these little fibers here? We got to get it off. We got to make it look clean. But for this one, we're not gonna, it'd be good to hit it with a little water, give it a little moisture, peels off a little better. Sometimes in the springtime, you can just peel the bark right off and it comes off real nice and clean. But for today, that's going to have to do. Now we're fighting against the clock here because it's starting to dry. I could feel it starting to dry on me. There's a crimp right there. See it crimping? That's not good, so we're going to try to... Oh, it's crimped right there. See, there we go. Fail. This has been a fail. Move on to the next one. This time we're going to try a darker red stick here, and then I'm just going to bend it real quick. I'm not going to peel the whole thing down and let it dry out. It's good to give it a good start with just the hands. Sometimes I don't even use anything to bend it around on. Or you go straight for the big hoop. You look for weakness. Crimp happening there. It's another fail. Bad time of year. Let's go with something skinnier, since we're having problems here. Maybe we'll bank on the unpeeled ones. turning out okay. I don't know if I ever made an unpeeled one. I've seen them in stores. What store was it? It might have been Westmark. It might have been La Quinta. It might have been Anchorage, for all I remember. But somebody had some pretty nice ones, and they were unpeeled. We're going to try to keep the pressure on all the way around. Look for crimps, look for weakness. Stomp them out. Okay, that one is looking okay. Not bad. I'm gonna let it dry. I can shape it more once it starts drying more. Oh, see, there's the bust right there. That happened. Busted. Let's try to go that way, though. Never know. That's not bad of a hoop. It's kind of small than I want it, but no crimps. Okay, I have 3 pairs of the peeled willow bent. We'll let those go ahead and dry so I can form them better without worrying about crimping. I'm gonna go ahead and just try to bend some of these ones with the bark still on, and we'll see what we get. The teardrops drying. I shaped them as much as I wanted to. The broken ones I've straightened out a bit. Use them for cross pieces. And I'm going to go check out what's going on down that way. Because you never know what's happening. It's good to check out the council's office and post office. Sometimes they post signs of what's going on. Sometimes there's opportunity. That's what the hustle life is about. The opportunity at the right time to jump on the crew to do something for a couple hours. But I'm going to let these dry. Try to be back within the next maybe hour and a half, maybe an hour. Let them dry for like an hour. We'll see where we get from there. Hey man, that's a cool sled. What's it made out of? What are these made out of?
The runner is siding.
Siding?
This one here is a stand for a shelf that used to belong at school.
Okay. Oh yeah, you just stuck it together?
I got the string being pulled from back there.
Use the handle. I am back. Took a little longer than I wanted to. These might be a little too dry, but it is dry enough to not crush the inside when I'm trying to shape it. If I tried to shape it while it was still green, I ought to crush the inside edge of the willow, and then it would just crimp really easy. Right now, the outside, I think it's dry enough to get a good push going without flattening. So I just slowly work my way around, getting smaller and smaller. Sometimes I'd have like a something smaller, and I'd work my way to where I want it to, but I'm just gonna kind of work my way around, see how it feels. Hear it crack. This is why I break so many. Well, you know, if you're doing 20 pairs, that's 40 of them. You'll break a bunch along the way, but then you'll end up using them for material, cross pieces. So I work my way around. We're not going to try to get real thin with it. If I had more time and more patience and better willow, I would get it pretty thin. We're going to just work some of their, find the ones that are weak, that have a little nub, where like a branch was coming out or a leaf was coming out. And there we go. And discard those, keep them for cross pieces. Back when we were making canoes at the same time, we just used all the broken stuff for canoe pieces. And okay. Oh, see, I just crimped it. Now this one is done. Now I just bust it, kind of straighten it out. Straighten it out for a cross piece. Sometimes, well, this part would be a good cross piece. Most of this bent up stuff, we don't want to fool around with that. The integrity is ruined. But the rest of it could make a good cross piece. I might have waited too long to come back. Sometimes I'll sacrifice a couple just to see where I'm at in the dryness. And I'll really go for it here. I'll really try to bend it to where I kind of want it at the end. Close to where I want it at the end. And see if it breaks. But for now, since this is kind of just an example, I'm not going to do that. All right, now for the ones that still have bark on it. Still pretty green, but somewhat moldable. Oh, not this one. This stuff still needs to dry more. I've never done it with bark. Made a full snowshoe with the bark still on, because you can't shave down the thicker end. With these, you could shave down the thicker end a little bit and hopefully meet up somewhere a little closer to this side. That's the problem with making snowshoes out of willow, is you have a thin side. So I've never done them with bark on there, so this is going to be a first time test, I guess. And we'll see how it looks when I'm going to weave the one that is peeled and the one that has bark on it still. The one with bark on it still might look a lot better when I'm weaving it, so maybe I'll use this as the example and weave pattern. But I'm just going to work on these. A few of these I should have peeled more, because I've already busted like half of them. It's a bad time of year. It's too dry out. All right, so we're at this point. Just kind of, I don't want to force it. I'm not going to make a nice thin snowshoe. It's going to be more teardrop. It's just not a very good time of year, I think, with being so dry. So I'm going to bind it down to where I feel like it's just about to bust. Try to shape it to match the either side. I'm going to get rid of this tape down here. And I'm going to try to shape some of the bottom. So we got our fish. This is the next step to get to, is our fish. And we could start trying to shape the bottom to our beaver tail. We're going to try to put somewhat of a beaver tail on this to get to this point. And then we'll try to get the beaver tail somewhat shaped before it really dries and gets hard. There, we got to some point. We want it to dry some more so I don't crimp anything when I get around this area. And we'll do the same to this one. I usually don't use duct tape to do this. I usually use the bark or some twine or something I can use over and over. Today I'm using duct tape. Sometimes I would get it to this point where I wouldn't worry about the beaver tail. I wouldn't even start the beaver tail. I would get it to that, and then I would let it dry, which is a good idea to do too, because this area right here where the cross pieces go in and where your foot goes, you kind of want that to be strong. You want it to be pretty strong, but get to this point, and I feel like right now my wood is still not dry enough, so I'm gonna just shape a little bit of a beaver tail in there. So later on when I close it together, there'll be some kind of shape when it gets really hard. You want this side, the skinny side, you want to kind of flare it out more than this side. This side you're going to bring out like this to get that beaver tail going. But this side you're going to want to do it a lot more. It's going to look a little wonky. It's going to look like one-sided. Like the skinny side is kind of strange. I like that. Like it's not balanced. It's not a mirror image. But later on when we're weaving, it'll just draw it right together, and you'll be happy that you overcompensated on this side with a bulge coming off. More like that. Just depends on how dry your stick is and how much you feel like you can risk getting a good bend going. This one doesn't even want to stay, so I'm just going to let that one dry some more. One more here to bend. Okay, I am at this point here. I shaped this one. I've kind of flattened it out. As you can see, the skinny side there's a lot more play to it. But once I start weaving, it's going to turn into something like that. So you kind of want to keep that there. I still would like that to be a lot more dry before I start weaving the back. And I'll be able to make just the tiniest of adjustments. But I am going to start putting in cross pieces. I'm not going to get too fancy with this. I'm just going to put them in quick, find out where to put them, and set them in. Looks like a good enough spot for me. So you could spend hours trying to make them exactly even, but I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to go with it. Kind of even out. Look down the whole thing. I'm going to call it there. And there's other ways to do this that I've found ways to insert these cross pieces in. So everything from little tiny nails to gluing to trying to notch everything in. This one I'm gonna put a little notch here just to keep it in place because there's gonna be some tension coming from coming from the weave, and I don't want these sticks to fall out, these cross pieces. Okay, so I'm at this point. I cleaned up this one pretty nice. I've straightened it out. I cleaned up any of the little hairy fibers that are stuck on it, and I've cut out a couple cross pieces. I'm not gonna get too fancy with these. I'm just gonna try to set them in. I could set these in a few different ways. One time I put nails through it, little tiny nails. Sometimes I make a little notch, or sometimes I would just glue it and let it really get hard. But this is the point where all of your tension is going to be on hair, so you got to set these in some way. So I'm just going to mark on either side of the cross piece and cut out just a real shallow notch. I don't have my X-Acto knives or anything. I can't find my stuff. I got to dig it out. So all I'm working with is some bigger knives and this little mini box cutter. So I've made a shallow little notch right here and right here. I'm going to put in a cross piece. Okay, that notch is good enough. Now I'm just going to glue it. Sometimes I like to use Gorilla Glue, the gel Gorilla Glue, because it's a lot thicker. But I wasn't ready for any of this. I don't have any real good glue, so I'm just going to use the super glue, and hopefully it works. I'm just going to dab it on there, big bunch of super glue. Okay, where's my tape? And I'm just going to tape it down. Make sure the notch is right. Everything looks good. Hopefully that keeps it down. Okay, everything looks good. I'm just gonna make sure it's tight. I've never actually used tape doing this. But I don't want to start over. All of this framework. The framework is the hardest part. After the frame is built and it's just a stable, nice frame, then you can just kick back and just weave. Do 20 non-stop. Finish it up. This is not going to be the most fanciest one. Okay, I've made a couple notches for the bottom cross piece. You want the bottom cross piece to be just a little bit shorter than the top. Now I'm going to glue it in, tape it down. I'm gluing everything together. This glue got all over my hand now because it's so watery. Probably from freezing in my house. But I'm not going to risk it. Smothered it in glue. Gonna tape it. And hopefully I'll have a nice solid frame once this dries. The glue everywhere. Everywhere on the stick is glue. Okay. Okay, that's gonna set now. Hopefully it's as even as it's gonna get. This one I was shaping and I just busted it. So you get to all the way to this point and then I busted. There was some weakness right there. So I can use it for cross pieces. Well, I'm not going to. I'm just going to make this one snowshoe. Okay, so I took the tape off and I've gotten it to this point. I put a small bend in it. I don't want to force it anymore. Usually I'll get some wet paper towel about this thin, just wrap it around this area, let it soak in a bit and then do the bend. But this will serve our purpose for this demonstration. You see how the bottom is all deformed, but once the bottom string comes on, it'll suck it in and it'll even it out. And it's dried pretty good. I just smothered it in super glue. Sometimes you'd keep these, make them a little wider, use thicker, so you got a little play if one is a little bit crooked or whatever. I was trying to use yarn, but the yarn was too fluffy and too dark. So I'm going to use this hemp cord. And I'm going to try to keep it as still as possible in this position. We're going to have strings going horizontal. We're going to have strings going left diagonal. And we're going to have strings going right diagonal. So that's what I'll be calling them. Horizontal, right diagonal, left diagonal. And we're going to start by tying it. We're going to come through the front loop here and we're going to tie. We're not going to come through the middle. We're going to go through this front and we're going to tie it down. Once you do this enough, you'll get the feeling of which side you want to go to when you tie it down. But I like to go through this side to keep my string pointed towards the outside of the frame. So when I cut it off later, it'll look good. It'll kind of hide it right there. So this is our position. I'm trying to keep it in this position mostly. Right here is where I would glue it down to the corner so it won't move to the left. I'd move it out of the way, dab a little glue, and then move it over top of the glue to hide the glue also. And this is our last chance to clean it up. Last chance to get any dirt, whatever that was on your hands, glue, any little fluff, because we're going to start we're going to start weaving here. So we're going to come through the top. This is going to give us our first 2 lines. And we are going to go over the middle, hold it down with my finger to keep it taut. We're going to come through the side here. And that's going to be our first 2 diagonals. It's going to look like that. Okay, so then we're going to come over the cross piece. I have too much rope, but I'm going to leave it like that. Come over the cross piece, and then we're going to go through the middle. So we're going to go on the right side of this right diagonal to the right side of it. Just like that. And then we're going to go to the left frame, wood. We're going over the wood. And remember this part, because this is going to be a pattern. All of the strings that come from this cross piece going left is going to have the same pattern. We are going around the wood, and then we're going to wrap it around itself right away. This is always going to happen. This is always right away from where it wraps around the wood. It goes towards it, wraps around itself right away. So we're going to come through this little hole right here, and we're going to wrap it around itself from underneath. This whole side will come from underneath. Just like that. So that's underneath itself. And then this right diagonal, we're going to go underneath that also. So immediately underneath the right diagonal. Just like that. You see how that's going to work? Just like that. Okay, so we finished our first connection here from the cross piece to the left side of the frame. We've went over the cross piece on the right side of it, straight to the wood, around itself, under the right diagonal. And we're going to do the exact opposite to the right side. We're going to go over the wood. Well, we're always going over the wood, but the exact opposite of this. So while we would go underneath itself on the left side, on the right side, we're going to go over itself. But you immediately wrap it around itself. So we're going to go over itself through here. And we're going to thread the needle through this very corner here, just to finish the process of going over itself. I've got a knot forming here. So it's gone around the wood, up over itself, and now we're going to go under the left diagonal. See how it's over the right diagonal? On this side, it's going under the left diagonal. So we're going to thread it through. Now we've gone under. Now we go straight to wood. We go around the wood. And like always, we're going to wrap it around itself immediately. So we come through around itself immediately. We're going to go to the left. So we're going to thread this very small triangle here. See that? That's around itself. And we can space it out a little bit. Now we go underneath the horizontal. As you see, all these left diagonals will go underneath the horizontals. So we go around itself immediately underneath the horizontal. And we're going to go over the left diagonal. All of the strings going, go over the right diagonal. All of the left diagonal strings will be going over the right diagonal strings. Then we go to wood. Straight to wood and then around itself. This time we're going to go left. We're going to go through the left, around itself, and then immediately underneath the left diagonal. Because this is turning into, well, first we're going to finish around itself. So that finishes going around itself. And then we go immediately under the left diagonal, because all the horizontal, this is kind of creating the top horizontal, and all horizontals go underneath left diagonals. Okay, we come to this point. This is where we're going to create, it's not going to change much. It's going to be the same as this right corner here. We're going to go around the wood, and then we're going to thread the needle through the top hole here. Coming up through. That's going to create it going around itself from the top, which everything on the right side goes around itself from the top. Like this one comes from the bottom. The left side comes from the bottom, came from the bottom. This one's always coming from the top. Okay, we've gone around itself. Now, since this is going to be a right diagonal line, but coming from the top instead, we are going to go underneath the left diagonal strings. Underneath both of them. My hemp is coming apart just a little bit. We've gone underneath both left diagonal strings and we come up through the middle, because all right diagonal strings go over horizontal strings. So we come up through the middle and we meet the bottom horizontal, which we're going to go over because it's a right diagonal, and then we go over wood also. So we're going over the wood. Then we have to wrap itself around itself right away. So we're going to go to the right side of itself here. Wrap it around itself. That means we're going to poke it right through here to wrap it around itself. That completes that. Then we go underneath the horizontal, because all right diagonal, even the corner ones, go underneath horizontal strings. So we immediately go underneath the horizontal, and that's going to mean bring it through here. See that? We go underneath the horizontal, and then we're going to wood. We've gone to the cross piece. We've gone around itself, underneath the horizontal, and then over a right vertical, because all the left strings go over right vertical strings. Then we go straight to wood, around the wood, then immediately around itself, right here. and then underneath all the right diagonals, because horizontals go underneath the right diagonals. So we go underneath both right diagonals with the horizontal, come up through the middle, which we always do, and we go over the left diagonals. See that there? We go over the left diagonals. Then we bring it around the top of itself, wrap it around itself immediately, which means we're coming through around itself through this hole here. See how that works right there? Around itself through the hole. And then since we just went round a horizontal, we need to go to the first diagonal and we need to go underneath it. See that right there? We're going to go underneath it. We're going to thread this hole right here. Straight up through here. Okay, now we've wrapped it around itself. We've gone underneath the left diagonal, because that's all the right diagonals do, go underneath them. And now we go over the horizontal. So that means threading right through this very small hole in the corner. Just like so. See that right there? Okay, then we bring it to the left and we go underneath the left diagonal. Then straight to wood. Just like so. See that right there? That's how it's supposed to look on the right side. We go hit wood, we go over around itself from the top. We go underneath the left, over the horizontal, underneath another left, then straight to wood. And then wrap it around itself immediately from the right side of itself. Just like that. See that right there? Then we go underneath both horizontals. Just like that. Up through the middle. And over both of the right diagonals. Straight to wood. Wrap it around the wood. Then, like all left side ones, we go underneath itself for the immediate wrap around itself. Thread it through here to finish going around itself. Straight through here, just like that. See? Then immediately we go underneath the right diagonal. That means through this little diamond right here, because that's the closest to where I'm going. We're going to close this X, this top X here. So we're going to go underneath the right diagonal, okay, over the left diagonal, which means going right to that very top diamond. Just like that. And that closes that diamond. Then we go underneath the right diagonal and over the left one, just like that. And then we've closed the Star of David up at the top. That is how it's closed. You see the pattern here? The horizontal has rules. It goes underneath the right diagonals and it goes over the top of the left diagonals. Then we hit wood. We go wrap it around itself from the top. Just like that. Wrapped it around itself, finish wrapping around itself by coming through to the back side, or the bottom side. It's coming apart a little bit. Okay, here we go. Okay, so now we're at this point. We've wrapped it around itself. We're going to create the third right diagonal by bringing it up through the middle. Just like that. We go over the horizontals because all right diagonals go over the horizontals. And we go straight to wood. We go around the wood and then we're going to wrap it around itself from the right side here. So we're coming through the middle gap, wrapping it around itself, going on the left side of its string through this little gap here. Okay, so we've wrapped it around itself. Now we go underneath the horizontal. So that means we're coming up through here. Just like that. That brings us to a right diagonal, which we always go over. And then that brings us to another horizontal. See that right there? Brings us to a horizontal, which we always go underneath when we're going left. See that right there? That brings us to the wood, where we go around the wood. And then we go underneath itself to wrap it around itself immediately. So we go underneath itself. Finish that by going to the bottom through that left side gap there. Okay. And now this is where everything meets up. This is where the middles meet. Because after we wrap it around itself left, we have to go underneath all three right diagonals. That means we're coming up through the very middle here. And then we're going over the three left diagonals. Just like that, straight to wood. And this makes everything meet up in the middle. So once we go to the right, we go over itself. We wrap it around itself from the top. That means we feed it through here. So we've gone around the wood and then around itself from the top. That's going to bring us to a left diagonal, which we go underneath. Straight up through here. Just like that. underneath that diagonal, then we go over the horizontal through that little hole right there. Brings us to that point. See, we've gone underneath the left diagonal, over the horizontal. Then we go underneath the next left diagonal through this hole right here. And then we go over the next horizontal, which is this very small gap right here. Just like that, we get to this point where we go left and things stretch out a bit. Then we go underneath the left diagonal. And that's where we hit wood. We go over the wood on the cross piece. Okay, we hit wood, then we go around itself from the right. Just like that, feed it through there. Finish going around itself immediately by bringing it to the bottom, which gives us that. And then this is where we go underneath two. We go underneath two horizontals. We come up through here. This is kind of the deviation. This is after everything meets up in 3 lines. We got 3 lines all over. So this is the deviation, not from the rules, but just from the pattern that we've kind of been following a little bit. We come up through here. We go under 2 horizontals. And we come up through this section here. That gives us that. We go over the right vertical. Which gives us that. Underneath the next horizontal up through here. Which closes the little bit of the gap. Then we go over the next 2 verticals straight to wood. That gives us that. That's the kind of not a really deviation. It still follows all the rules, but it creates a strange, I don't know. It starts it differently. We go underneath 2 horizontals, and that's where we start meeting the right verticals, which we go over. We go under horizontal, we go over right 2 verticals, straight to wood. We wrap it around itself from the bottom, which all left sides do. From underneath through here. My hemp is falling apart a little bit. Okay, so we've gone around itself from the bottom. Okay, this is where we're going to start looking, because we're creating space between all of these strings, and we're going to need 7 on this side and 7 on that side. Right now we have 6, so we're going to try to even it out a little bit. So when the next string lands here, it's going to be kind of even all the way up. So this is where we're gonna fool around with it just a little bit. We've gone around itself from the bottom through here to finish going around itself. So we go to the bottom here, just like that. We'll get to this point. See? gone around itself, gone through the bottom. This is where we're going to start meeting up immediately. Immediately we go underneath the first right diagonal. That means through there. That closes the next X here. See? And it closes that up. We go over the left diagonal. And under the right diagonal. And we just continue. Wash, rinse, and repeat. Left underneath the right, over the left, which means we go to the back. See that right there? It's just under, over, all the way to there. We go underneath the right diagonal. And we go to wood, which brings us over the left diagonal. Things are starting to get tight. I'm kind of getting worried about my tension. All of this is starting to cause tension, and that's why it's good to secure your cross pieces in. But I'm using hemp, so it's not going to get that tight. If I was using sinew, I use imitation sinew. So okay, so we're going over the right, the frame. Then, like all going over the right sides of the frame, we go over itself from the top, which I'm holding it weird, but I'm trying to hold tension on there. Okay, I'm just going to forget about that. Okay, we go over wood, and then we go over itself from the top, right there. I got a little something coming off here. Okay, so we've gone over the wood, over itself from the top, which continuation means we bring it all the way, bring the string out to the bottom. Every time it goes around itself, it goes to the bottom. Over the top, to the bottom. This is where we go underneath the left diagonals, but we're going to go underneath two left diagonals. Like how we did here where we went underneath two verticals when we went up to do this one. We're going to go underneath two left diagonals. This is kind of not the deviation, but the next step to get this to go here is to go underneath two left diagonals, which brings us right up, straight up through here. To this point. I try to show it good. See? We've come up. We've gone through underneath both left diagonals. Now we're going to go over a horizontal. That means we're going to go immediately over it. That brings us through this hole right here. Right here. You see that? Right to that point. This is our next point. This is where we go underneath the immediate next diagonal, as so. Then we go over the next horizontal. And underneath the next left diagonal, like so. And over the horizontal. That brings us to this right here. This is where we've gone around, we've gone under two left diagonals, immediately over a horizontal, underneath the left diagonal, over a horizontal, underneath the left diagonal, over a horizontal, straight to wood, where we go around itself from the right. And to finish going around itself, wrapping it around itself immediately, we have to go bring the string to the bottom, like that. Then we get to this point. Okay, so immediately we go underneath the horizontal to there, over a right vertical, to there, underneath the next horizontal. That means we're bringing it up through here. We get to that point. It's gone around the wood, around itself, to the back, to the bottom, underneath a horizontal, over the right vertical, underneath the horizontal. Now we're going over a right vertical, straight through here. That means we're going over the right vertical, underneath the next horizontal. That means here. Now we've got to this point. The pattern continues. This is going to be our last string. We're going to go over the right vertical, straight to wood. Things are getting a little tight. Hopefully it doesn't break my glue. My leg is falling asleep. Okay, that's what we're looking at. All the rules are always happening. These go over the horizontal but under the left side. So we go straight to wood, underneath and around itself. Finish going around itself by bringing it to the bottom. And we got that. Sometimes you need to tighten it a little bit. Okay, we get to there. We go immediately underneath the right diagonal through this little diamond. And get to that point. Over the left diagonal to get to this point here. Underneath the right diagonal to get to there. Underneath the right diagonal, over the left diagonal. Underneath the next right. See, I'm clearing all these X's. I'm finishing it off. You can see the pattern coming together as I go underneath the right diagonal, over the left. See? Underneath the right, through here, and immediately over the left. So that takes care of that. You see how I've went around the wood underneath itself, immediately underneath the right diagonal, over the left, under the right, over the left, under the right, over the left, and under the right, over the left, straight to wood, where it's going to wrap around itself, but from the top. Just straight up through here. We get to that point where it's wrapped around itself, but it's not done wrapping around itself until you get to the back. So we go front to the back, just like that. See here? Now for the last line, we've went around itself from the top, we went to the back. Now we are going underneath the first left diagonal, which will bring us right here through this gap. time you need to fiddle around with it a bit. Okay, so we got to this point here, underneath it. Now you're going to come straight up through here, which means we're going over a vertical to this gap. We get to this point. And then we go underneath the left diagonal through the left side hole here, right to there. We go over the horizontal, which gives us that. Then we're going left underneath the left diagonal, which gives us that right there. Things are getting a little bunched up. So we went under the left diagonal, then we go over the horizontal, which brings us right to this gap right here. To that. And we go underneath the left diagonal through this final gap here. That brings us underneath the left diagonal and then straight to wood. Now we are done. That finishes it off. See how the pattern's all worked out? All the rules haven't been broken. We go to wood. You can either glue it right here, create a knot. I've done all sorts of things. It's nice to glue it right here. But sometimes I'll make a little knot. I'm just going to make a knot. I'm going to bring it up through here. And I'm going to tie a little knot in the back. Oh. I'm not going to make a knot. It just doesn't look good with this materials. I always got to have some tweezers in this line of work. There's always something need to be tweezed. Okay. I'm going to try it just by wrapping it around itself one more time. Nope. I forgot what I used to do. So I'm just going to glue it down here. Just like that. I really don't like this super glue. It's gotten all over my hands. I like the gel. Gorilla Glue gel is what I want. I might have some somewhere. So that's going to glue. I'm just going to smother it in glue. And then I'll wrap it around itself a little bit just to let the glue set. And that's the top. The bottom, the pattern is a little different. Not quite the same. The bottom pattern, it follows the same rules most of the time. That's going to be our snowshoe. That's already dried. And if you have to, you could get a little needle or something and spread out, make them more even. But that brings us to this same pattern over and over. A couple little different things after you go through the middle. You skip 2, you go underneath 2 when you go up to this side, and then when you come down, you go underneath 2, and you make up for it later. I don't know if I should do the bottom today. Maybe I'll do the bottom tomorrow.